This episode of the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast is brought to you by the Podcast Reach System. Are you ready to exponentially reach more profitable customers? Launching and hosting your own show is your proven best solution for networking, client attraction, and establishing your celebrity expert brand. Visit www.podcastreachsystem.com and claim your rightful place as the leading star of your industry so you make a difference for your community, market, and audience. Welcome to the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast. Join us as we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who reveal what they are doing to make the world a better place by being part of it. Be sure to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, lean in, tune in, get your notepad and 2 pens ready, and let's get started.
Hi, my name is Adam Homey, and once again, I am honored by your wise decision to tune in and invest in yourself today. Here at the Brilliance Plus Passion Project, we highlight folks who make the world a better place by being part of it and their contributions to it. And every once in a while, I get to have very interesting conversations like the one you're about to enjoy today. With us, we have Scott Shrader, who is the founder of Vault Wealth Management and the Palm Event. What makes this installment particularly interesting is I've known Scott for 28 years. When I went off to college after I left that little town I came from and arrived at Penn State McKeesport, Scott is one of the first people I met and became friends with. And there was just something about him. I'm not sure what it was. Actually, I do know what it was. I came from an environment that, for better or worse, didn't necessarily show me all the possibilities in life. So here's this guy. He's a sophomore going to a Commonwealth campus at Penn State, and he shows up driving a 1987 Porsche 944 that he bought himself. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? And this was one of the first glimpses I got to what became a lifelong journey of understanding that paradigms are often somebody's permanent explanation to some anomaly. So in a way, it opened my eyes. And since then, Scott has been around. He and I hung out in college for a good bit. Then he just pops up on my radar screen every so often. I remember earlier this year, you were on the Daily Mail, and I found out about it because a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, that guy there, isn't that your car dude?" It's like, yeah. Oh, son of a gun, that is him. So, Scott, how you doing, man?
Good. That is so funny. I almost, forget sometimes people identify me as the guy with the Porsche 944. Mm-hmm. But I remember you had the Camaro at the time, and
boy, that thing was a piece of shit, but I loved it. That thing was
amazing. The relationships that cars, cars can start over the years, and
yeah.
I have learned recently that my Camaro back then was a little special. It's called the Starship Camaro. It was the
Berlinetta. Yes.
Yes. So I'm hoping to buy one at some point in the very near future.
Yeah, I'm thinking when I hit certain goals, I'd like to get a 92 Z28 25th anniversary edition, the best of the third gens that you can get, or the most latest of the third gens you can get with the 350 TPI. No T-tops, though, because I'm going to do a system again.
Why the T-tops and the music just flows out through the T-tops?
Yeah, I like to keep it to myself. It's one of my little things. When I first put that system in, I'd be driving around. People would hear me coming. An hour later, I'd show up. And they'd say, how do you not go deaf? Then you get in the vehicle, and it's like you're sitting front row at a concert. It all balances out when you adjust your speakers and such correctly. So I don't know anything about trigonometry or algebra or anything like that, but apparently I used somebody else's trigonometry in college algebra to figure out how to not to blow my amps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what you're up to these days. I know you got a couple things. You're a financial advisor, and you have this very interesting event.
Yeah, actually, and it's it's just crazy the way your life turns out. Like I said, start off by saying I'm not necessarily here to promote a business or anything.
Hmm.
Just saw my friend having a podcast and said I want to support you. So I'm going to talk very general about about some of the stuff. But
Hmm.
interestingly, when I knew you, I think I was in computer science when I first had met you.
Yes. Yes, you are.
And the crazy thing happened was I bought this Porsche 944. I started off with a Camaro,
Hmm.
found the Corvette where the owner, I think, was fleeing from the IRS and sold it to me for like $6,400. And I
Yeah.
found a beautiful Porsche, and they gave me like 10.9 in trade for it. And all my friends are buying Cavaliers and Geostorms, and for
Hmm.
almost the same price, I bought a Porsche. I was like, how can I go wrong?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, as cool the car was, is I really couldn't afford the maintenance on it.
Yeah, I remember you did have some problems with it. I used to tease you about your mom's Regal, which was also a very nice car.
It was. Well, I met through the Porsche a guy who was he worked at the Volkswagen plant in Pennsylvania
Hmm.
and was also a financial advisor with Primerica,
Hmm.
which was like an MLM type financial advice place.
Yep.
And he just started teaching me. He was trying to recruit my parents, but I got to know him and he was teaching me all about finance. And I was like just completely mesmerized. And, it really taught me different mindsets, why the rich are rich, why the poor stay poor, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just astounded that up to that point, I had never learned that. And most people never do.
Hmm.
My parents, my mother was a teacher. And realistically, that's kind of what I do. I don't sell investments. I don't, do this. I try to teach people, principles and really just help them, to, to take charge in their lives. But it was just ironic because really soon after I met the guy, I changed my major to finance and international business.
Hmm.
And so I took that Porsche up to Penn State, and little did I know, about 15, 20 years later, I got invited to a Rolls Royce driving event at our local racetrack.
Yeah.
And after it, they gave us the keys and said, here, partner up with somebody and take the car for a drive. Well, sure enough, I sit in the car, and this guy's one of the only other guys there with a Porsche. We both had Porsches at the event.
Uh-huh.
And we got to talking, and he was from State College. And I said, when I was at Penn State, somebody left a note on my car, and asked me to join the Porsche Club.
Hmm.
And, at Penn State, the last thing on our minds was Porsches. We were more into, having a good time, meeting
Hmm.
people, and just doing that. So I
Yeah.
never responded to him. And he said, well, what year was that? And I told him I won't date either one of us. And he said, that was me. I was president of the Porsche Club when I lived in there, and I used to go around putting notes on people's cars. And he had actually founded the Palm event, and I ended up taking it over when he moved out of town. Just
Okay.
the irony of something like that is almost unheard of. You never.
Wow.
That's what the so
Circles of life.
that Porsche not only introduced me to you, it introduced me to finance, and it introduced
Hmm.
me to the event that I run currently. So
Yeah.
it's really crazy how things come around.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know. So, one of the questions that we ask is on this show, and I know we're just having sort of a general conversation here, but let me just ask this anyway. When
Sure.
people are checking you out, thinking about getting involved with something you're doing, what are some of the top questions they have, like the frequently asked questions?
Well, that's kind of funny because it used to be like we were talking earlier about the internet and just when we met,
Hmm.
we would have never thought we'd be podcasting 20 some years later.
Yeah.
When I first started in business, I would spend the first 10 minutes telling people, about me, about a company, what we stand for. Now, when people come in for the first 10 minutes, they tell me about my company, what they like about me, what's important, and all of that stuff just from reading. People do all the research before
Uh-huh.
they come in. So that's one thing that's really important is to make sure that you have the correct message out there. Uh,
Right.
Most of the questions that I get are stuff that's just that people think they should ask, and it's not what's important. Like,
Yeah.
what is your favorite stock, or what's the hot stock now, or what kind of return can you get me? And that's just like that's not the right questions to be asking. Somebody who's really looking after your whole finances. If your entire future goes down
Mhm.
to one stock, that's not a good sign.
Right, right, right. So basically, what you've done is you've transitioned to the next question we typically ask is what are some of the questions you wish people would share with you?
I think basically just people should be asking, how are you going to make my life better?
Yeah,
You know, what can you do? How can you help me? Here's what I want to accomplish long term. What's the best means to get there?
yeah. All right, so let's have some fun. And for those of our of your friends, my friends, maybe some mutual friends that might show up on here, we like to have a little bit of fun and give our listeners the opportunity to get to know our guests as people and some of the interesting things about them. So first is, what would people who know you be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I have all kinds of, strange things. I mean, when I've made it a point to really try a lot of different things. Um, I used to box recreationally. I never
Yeah.
really, was professional. I spent some time in Costa Rica. Um,
Mhm.
I drove a Ford Explorer at one point, but
Wow, that right there is a little bit of a pattern interrupt from what I'm used to you driving.
my favorite job was delivering pizzas.
I remember when you used to deliver the pizzas, but by day you're a college student and a Primerica advisor, and at nights and weekends you're delivering pizzas.
Yeah, I had so many jobs. I mean, people forget now. I used to sell sports cards and sports memorabilia. I started. I'm a
Yeah.
workaholic, as people know. I had a
Hmm.
paper out when I was 13. I was selling sports cards, baseball cards. It started off at flea markets, locally,
Hmm.
and then it went to shows, throughout the Northeast. And yeah, and then when I knew you, I probably had three jobs. I mean, I worked at Johnny K's, which was a bar. I worked at Racks, McDonald's,
I
anywhere.
remember McDonald's. I remember McDonald's because what was his name? I think it was Nick, if I remember correctly. He
Yeah,
was a manager there or something like
yes,
that.
he was.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you hope people say about you when you're not around to hear it?
That I'm competent.
Yeah.
No, it's realistically. I think the best thing that I could hear is that I made a difference in someone's life, and they were better off for having
Hmm.
known me.
Yeah.
I think that's
A-
the ultimate compliment, and that's what it is. I mean, it's too. I've been very, very fortunate in. When I started off, I interned at a couple places. I didn't like what I saw in the financial world. It was all about pushing product. You learn these great
Mhm.
ideals in school, and then it's all about push product.
Yeah.
I had a tax business, and then I just was able to get licensed, and I thought that I would just help people out, and I didn't have to rely on it as an income. And
Yeah.
so it just had a snowball effect, and that ended up being my main business. And my goal isn't to sell people expensive stuff. My people is to just find them a good match for what's going to what's going to be right for them in the long term.
Exactly. So the theme of our conversation has been journeys through time, the circles of life,
Yeah,
serendipity. But I got to ask, if you could go back and change one thing you've done or one thing you've experienced or happened, what would it be and why?
absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And I say that because I'm extremely happy with
Mhm.
where I'm at right now. And if I could go back and change one thing, even something that I regret, because everybody has some regrets. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I would have done this differently. But in reality, if you go back and change one thing, however small, like the butterfly effect, I guess,
Yes.
I
Yes.
wouldn't be right here where I'm at. And some of the choices that I made, could have, led to what I considered hard lessons. I mean, I don't think that
Uh-huh.
they may not be hard lessons for everybody, but there's things I could say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that or that, but there
I've
really
got a
is.
few.
I'm super, super happy where I'm at today. I
Yeah.
mean, if I had to choose something, I guess like, there were times where I was hard on people, in high school or wherever. And, maybe wish I would have done something positive instead of, you know, picked on them, but, I
Mhm.
wasn't, it was more good natured. I mean, I was a little hellion in eighth grade, but after
Yeah.
that, once I got to 10th grade, it was basically good nature. I mean, eighth grade, it's just fitting in,
Yeah.
and to an extent, I'm a believer in some. This is probably something I shouldn't say on the podcast, but I'm a believer somewhat in bullies, and not bullies like that are physically
Huh.
hurting people. But I think an important lesson to learn is overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
And yes, I picked on some people, but people picked on me too, and that
Yeah.
made me develop life skills to overcome adversity. And I think that's something that's missing. And again, I'm not saying we should be beating kids up or that kind of stuff.
You're
But
you're not advocating for bullying. Let's be clear on that.
right, I'm
Yeah.
advocating for teaching kids how to solve the problems on their own and
Uh-huh.
not going to, the principal or whoever when somebody calls them a name or somebody's giving them a hard time. There is a line that should be drawn, but sometimes when we try to make things better, we kind of go overboard. And so I guess,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how this question turned into that. But again, like I
Mhm.
said, in eighth grade, when we grew up in Pittsburgh, it was like an eat or be eaten kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
I picked on
That's
people, I
true.
got picked on, but again, it taught me some important life lessons. And as I grew up and as I got to like 10th grade, it was mostly, for the most part, good natured. Like I don't really have a lot of enemies from the past or anything like
Yeah.
that. So it's just a minor thing. I think if I
Mhm.
could change anything, I'd make it a little bit more positive of an experience. As long as it didn't alter the rest of my life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. So this is going to be a pretty interesting question because folks who know about the Palm event and know where it's held. So I'm very interested in your answer to this question.
Sure.
If there was a famous person that you had the opportunity to meet, alive or dead, who would it be, and what question would you have for them?
Barack Obama. No, I'm just kidding.
That's okay because a lot of us know that because we saw it on the Daily Mail that you actually had a conversation with former President Trump because you held the event at Mar-a-Lago. That's
Yeah,
actually how I found out that you'd met him because a friend of mine who's a major Trump supporter came to me and said, "Hey, look, isn't that your car guy?" I said, "Son of a gun, yeah, it is."
that's interesting. I try to, ironically, I try not to be too political, and
Yeah,
especially for the event, we try to keep it as apolitical as we can, given the
yeah,
venue that it's at.
hmm
We never thought in 2015 that he would be president of the United States.
yeah,
And, I don't know if you saw my video from this year, but if I just start to talk about this year's Palm event, it's like it happened to another person. I would have never believed it at Penn State McKeesport. It's
yeah.
like, well, the day that I bought my Countach, I got
Uh-huh.
engaged at Donald Trump's house in front of Vanilla Ice, and then the former president of the United States congratulated us on our engagement. It's like, what?
Yeah. So you've already risen a pretty high bar in terms of famous people you've met. But who's on the
Yeah.
bucket list? Who's on the wish list?
I again, it goes back to I like to meet people, that are exceptional at what they do and people that have made a difference in the world. And it's tough because I've met a lot of people. I've been fortunate
Mhm.
to meet a lot of people. I've recently I got to meet Bruce Campbell, who I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I met him 20 years ago, so I got to see him
Mhm.
again for a second time. Trump was definitely a character. I mean, I got to see George Bush, Barack Obama,
Mhm.
and Trump, but Trump was he's not what you see on TV all the time. He's a people pleaser. He loves to go out and just you know
Yeah.
always complimenting people. And it's strange. And he came up to me, um, the 1 year he was a sitting president where we had the car show, which was crazy because I think that's the only time that you've ever had a car show on the lawn of a sitting president. But he, that was the day that the Mueller report was released.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But he came up to me the next year and he says, "Hey, why didn't you ask me to put any cars in your show?" Yeah. He's like,
Mr. President.
he's like, "Can I have Secret Service pull my cars around?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And so, we this year we gave him an award, and he came down and hey, Princess.
This is Princess Alessandra. She's here to say hello.
Hello. He came down and he holds our award up high, and then he got on the mic and said how great our car show was, something a little inappropriate, and then he said, and then he walked through the crowd, and that was the last thing that Secret Service wanted. But
he's known for that, and John F. Kennedy was known for that too. He used to drive the Secret Service freaking nuts by just diving into crowds. They're saying this guy's going to get shot.
That's exactly what Trump would do, and it's a little weird too because you see on TV, but then you go to Mar-a-Lago and it really is an alternate universe. I mean, it really is. But as far as other people I'd like to meet, I mean, it's like I said, people who have done amazing things, and they're different, like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Einstein, people that changed the world. Enzo Ferrari.
Oh, there's no surprise there.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like really people that change the world, that think differently, because it takes a lot. I mean, I'm like, even you, Adam, I'm it's like proud to see you on there doing something different, because there's just nothing worse than people who spend all of their lives with no direction, doing something that they hate in order to, to get old and just sit there and retire and not really be happy. And that's something I just, me from 18 years old, I just never understood. And, I was a little different than Pittsburgh because that's not your typical, Pittsburgh lifestyle, but here I am.
Yep, you always stood out for me. That I got to say. So overall, we've covered pretty much everything. I mean, you've answered questions even ahead of time. But if there was one thing, and I'm going to share links to your websites with the audience in just a moment, so they can go check you out. If there's one thing that you would encourage somebody to do as soon as they finish listening to this within the next minute or so, what would it be?
Well, I think I kind of almost just answered that. And I guess it's a two-part question. I mean, one of them is take charge of your life. And, again, people work all their lives and never really think about it. But, I'm talking just career-wise, financial-wise, everything-wise. Just really, instead of just going with the flow, just figure out what you like and what you want to do and make something of it. I mean, most people, work all their lives to build somebody else's dream. And I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time, even if it's something you hate. So at the very least, try to get a job in an industry that you're passionate about or that you actually enjoy doing. I mean, if you're miserable going to work, don't do it another 10 years. Figure out a plan. Same with everything. I mean, finance wise, don't throw your money at anybody or whatever. Just make sure you understand, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is my philosophy. And you can't just change it every time something changes on the news. You have to really, come up with a plan and just stick to it and enjoy it and be passionate and set goals and all that kind of stuff. Even with cars. I mean, I've done that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought, it's the Camaro. I mean, that was my first car. I had wheel chargers, the little transformer, My ultimate goal was the Countach. I went from there to, remember, Jazz. So that was the Porsche. So I went to the 944, and then it just kept going on. And I just could never understand why people spend $500 a month, $1,000 a month, $40,000, $50,000 on a car every 5 years, and it's not something they want or care about. It's just something they spend a good portion of their income on. So, that's kind of the thing. It's like just be present and to to be passionate in their lives about things and make intentional decisions. Don't just let life happen to you.
Exactly. All right. So for our listeners, you got to check Scott out. Here's the website for his financial practice. It's www.vaultpalmbeach.com. I'll leave that to you to check out. And if you want to check out the Palm event, go to www.thepalmevent.com. I promise you an experience. I promise you a journey. And with that, Scott Shrader, thank you so much for coming by. It's been an honor, and as always with you, believe me, in education.
Thank you, Adam. And it was I can't tell you how great it was seeing you again, chatting with you again, and it's just takes me back to my youth. I mean, you get a little so far removed from Penn State McKeesport. It just it's not even Penn State McKeesport anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yep. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, great talking with you.
Thank you for tuning into the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast, where we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who are making a difference for their community, market, and audience. Remember to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast.